People say you can't turn back the clock, which is technically true, unless you count the part where your cells quietly give up years before you do. It turns out there are a few foods that slow that process down, although most of them look like something you'd scrape off a sidewalk after it rained. The funny thing is, we all want to age gracefully, but not enough to chew anything green that isn't disguised as a dessert. So this is really just a tour of the things that help you stay functional, assuming you can get past the part where they taste like punishment. Think of it less as a diet and more as a series of small, edible disappointments that happen to be good for you. Number 1. Blueberries and anthocyanins. The funny thing about blueberries is that they're one of the few healthy foods people actually like, which already makes them suspicious. Anything that tastes good and is good for you usually gets discontinued, yet blueberries somehow dodged that fate. The real trick hiding inside them is anthocyanins, which sound like something you'd need a prescription for, but are just pigments that behave like tiny firefighters. They slip past the blood-brain barrier, which is more security than most airports have, and head straight for inflammation like it owes them money. This is especially useful in the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for remembering why you walked into the kitchen in the first place. With enough anthocyanins, the neurons there start acting a bit more social, talking to each other without that awkward buffering they normally do. Over time, this gives you the kind of memory that makes people say things like, "Wow, you remember that?" instead of, "Are you okay?" The catch, of course, is you need more than the 3 sad berries sprinkled on a muffin. A proper amount actually does something, even if it means keeping a bag of frozen ones in your freezer like a responsible adult you never planned to become. Number 2. Dark chocolate and flavanols. Dark chocolate is one of those foods people pretend to like for their health, even though most of us are really just negotiating with ourselves about how bitter we're willing to go. There's always that moment when you bite into an 85% bar and think, ah yes, the taste of compressed soil. But the higher the cacao percentage, the more flavanols you actually get, and those are the things doing the heavy lifting. Flavanols basically walk up to your arteries and remind them to relax, which is something the rest of you hasn't done since age 12. They help your blood produce nitric oxide, a gas that tells your vessels to stop behaving like overworked, underpaid employees and let blood flow smoothly again. When that happens, the rest of your body gets the memo. Your blood pressure chills out, and your brain gets a little more circulation than whatever was left over from last week's coffee binge. The funny part is how quickly people try to cheat the system by grabbing milk chocolate and hoping for the same results. But that's mostly just sugar wearing a brown coat. If you want the benefits, you have to commit to the version that tastes slightly like a dare. Ideally, you eat a small square, pretend it's delicious, and feel intellectually superior for the rest of the day. Number 3. Green tea and EGCG. Green tea is one of those things people buy with the same optimism they buy gym memberships, convinced this will finally be the habit that turns everything around. Then you make a cup, take a sip, and realize it tastes a bit like someone rinsed a plant and forgot to throw out the water. But underneath that gentle disappointment is EGCG, the molecule that does most of the heavy lifting while you pretend to enjoy the flavor. EGCG works like a quiet cleanup crew, roaming around to neutralize whatever free radicals you've collected from stress, sunlight, or the decision to stay up past midnight again. It also nudges your cells toward autophagy, which sounds dramatic, but is really just your body looking at its worn-out parts and deciding it's time for a garage sale. Old, sluggish cells get broken down and reused, which is both efficient and slightly unsettling if you think too hard about it. What makes green tea oddly charming is the way it keeps you alert without making you feel like you're about to run through a wall, unlike certain beverages we won't name. You get this calm, focused energy, as if your brain finally found the low-power mode it should have had all along. And once you get used to the grassy taste, or at least accept it as your fate, it becomes one of those small, uneventful habits that actually pays off. Number 4. Extra virgin olive oil and polyphenols. Olive oil is one of those foods people swear they use all the time, which usually means they bought a fancy bottle once and now keep it on the counter as decoration. The real version, the good stuff, comes in a dark bottle, costs slightly more than your weekly groceries, and burns the back of your throat in a way that makes you question your life choices. That burn, though, is oleocanthal, quietly doing its anti-inflammatory thing like a tiny bouncer removing troublemakers from your arteries. What makes olive oil interesting is how it activates sirtuins, these very responsible little proteins that help with DNA repair. It's a bit like giving your cells a manager who finally shows up to work and asks why everything's on fire. But the catch is you have to use the oil raw, because heating it basically sends all those helpful polyphenols on an early retirement. Drizzling it over food is ideal, even if it makes you feel like someone who suddenly cares about flavor profiles now. The tricky part is avoiding the fake stuff, those giant plastic jugs that look like they should come with a free tire rotation. The real oil tastes peppery, a little sharp, and mildly confrontational. If it makes you cough, that's how you know you didn't just waste your money on very expensive, very shiny vegetable grease. Number 5. Wild salmon and omega-3s. Wild salmon is one of those foods people swear they'll eat more of someday, usually right after remembering they've been living mostly on carbs and vibes. The thing about salmon is that it's basically nature's way of saying, look, I tried to make something healthy and tasty, please meet me halfway. The magic comes from DHA and EPA, the omega-3 fats your cell membranes absolutely love because they keep everything flexible instead of acting like brittle plastic left in the sun. Then there's astaxanthin, the antioxidant that gives salmon its pink color, and sounds like something you'd unlock at level 12 of a video game. It works like internal sunscreen, helping protect your skin from UV damage so you don't slowly develop that weathered leather wallet aesthetic. It's one of the rare nutrients that does a lot while not demanding much from you, aside from occasionally eating a fish that swam upstream purely out of spite. The important part is choosing wild over farmed. Farmed salmon is basically the fish equivalent of fast fashion, crowded, stressed, dyed to look healthier than it is, and nutritionally about as inspiring as a wet napkin. The wild stuff actually has the nutrients you're paying for, even if it does cost enough to make you rethink your entire budgeting philosophy. Number 6. Broccoli sprouts and sulforaphane. Broccoli sprouts are funny because they look like something you'd grow for a middle school science project, not something you'd willingly put in your mouth. They're small, flimsy, and somehow manage to taste both bitter and judgmental at the same time. But underneath that grassy personality is sulforaphane, which is the whole reason these sprouts get invited to the anti-aging conversation in the first place. Sulforaphane shows up in amounts way higher than what you'd find in actual broccoli, which feels a bit unfair, like the toddler version somehow outperforms the adult. Once it gets inside you, it switches on the NRF2 pathway, basically the body's internal cleanup instructions. It's the system that tells your cells to stop lounging around and start clearing out the toxic leftovers from modern life. Not glamorous work, but important. This becomes especially handy when you're dealing with things like pollution, sunlight, or whatever mystery fumes drift out of your microwave at 2 a.m. The sprouts give your cells the tools they need to defend themselves, instead of quietly falling apart. The only downside is actually eating them. Most people end up blending them into smoothies, which doesn't improve the flavor so much as hide it behind fruit that's trying its best. But if you can get past the taste, your cells will act like you finally made a responsible decision. Number 7. Avocado and healthy fats. Avocados are one of the few foods that manage to be both extremely healthy and extremely annoying at the same time. They sit on your counter for a week pretending to be a rock, then turn ripe for exactly the amount of time it takes you to leave the house. And by the time you get back, they've collapsed into a brown mush with trust issues. But when you actually catch one at the right moment, the payoff is in the fat, specifically the monounsaturated kind your cells genuinely appreciate. These fats slip into your cell membranes and keep them flexible instead of stiff and cranky. It's a bit like giving your cells moisturizer, except you're eating it, which is somehow less weird than it sounds. And once those membranes are in good shape, your skin stops doing that thing where it dries out faster than your motivation on a Monday morning. The other trick avocados pull off is helping your body absorb fat-soluble vitamins. You can eat all the kale you want, but without some fat, those vitamins are basically window shopping. Avocado is the taxi that picks them up and drops them off where they're supposed to be. On top of that, the lutein and zeaxanthin sneak into your skin and eyes, offering a bit of protection from UV and the endless blue light glow of whatever device you're definitely staring at right now. It's a lot of benefit wrapped in a fruit that behaves like it has commitment issues. Number 8. Fermented foods and probiotics. Fermented foods are the part of the grocery store people walk past quickly, usually because they look like someone forgot them in a cellar for a few months. Sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, none of them scream youthful glow, but they all do something your body has been quietly begging for. They bring in live probiotics, which is basically sending reinforcements to your gut after years of stress, questionable meals, and whatever you call your diet on weekends. Your gut is where a lot of trouble starts, especially inflammation. And if aging had a favorite hobby, it would be causing inflammation whenever possible. Fermented foods help calm that down by lowering things like IL-6, which is one of those molecules your body releases when it's feeling dramatic. Keeping it under control means everything else runs a little smoother, Like your insides finally got the memo to stop overreacting. Then there's the serotonin angle, which always surprises people. Most of it isn't made in your brain, it's made in your gut, which essentially means your mood depends on whether your internal bacteria are happy. Give them the right fermented foods and they chill out, which in turn helps keep you from feeling like a stressed out raisin. It's not glamorous, and it definitely doesn't smell glamorous, but fermented foods do a lot of work behind the scenes. They're the unsung heroes. Slightly funky, occasionally bubbly, and way more alive than anything else in the fridge. It's odd how we spend so much time trying to slow down aging, even though half the problem is just remembering to eat something that isn't beige. Most people want the end result, without the part where you actually change anything. Meanwhile, your body is quietly doing its best with whatever you give it. And the truth is, the internal work doesn't stop when you decide to call it a night. If anything, that's when things get even weirder. While you're asleep, your body goes through a whole list of processes that sound more like plumbing repairs than biology. If you've ever wondered what really happens during those hours you can't remember, the next topic digs into the surprisingly gross stuff your body pulls off every night. Stick around if you want to know what's been happening behind your back.